Hello trekkers, I'm David Greenwood and you're listening to another episode of Expedition. The idea of an off-road adventure exploring parts of Russia, Mongolia and Siberia had long been brewing in Jyri Koski's head. Broken Roads to Siberia is an adventure motorcycle documentary about two friends, Jyri and Tuukka, who ride to the infamous Vitim bridge in far-out Siberia. The 10,000 kilometer long journey through the Russian wilderness, Altai mountains, Mongolian deserts, and Siberian taiga take their toll on the pair as the journey progresses. But I'll let Jyri and Tuukka tell you more about it. Hello, good evening, Jyri. Good evening, Tuukka. How are you guys?
We are excellent here. Thank you very much.
Very good, very good. Nice to talk to you, David.
So we're here today to talk about a film that both of you produced, Broken Roads to Siberia. And it's an adventure motorcycle film about the two of you traveling 7,000 kilometers across Russia. Jyri, perhaps you want to explain a bit more about the trip and the journey itself.
Yeah, so me and Tuukka, we took off from Helsinki, Finland on a midsummer, 24th of June 2016, when everybody else was going with the families to summer cottages. And me and Tuukka took off for this 10,000 kilometer road trip across the border to Russia first. And then we explored the Russian Karelia. So before the war, Second World War, that area used to belong to Finland. So it's full of these kind of abundant gravel roads and really like dream place for adventure riders. So we spent like a bit less than a week there, just explore the forest roads and all the scenarios there. That was really nice. And from there we hit the Moscow. So we rode all the way down to Moscow and I put our bikes and ourselves to Trans-Siberian train, spent 3 days and nights on a Trans-Siberian train. And then we went all the way to Novosibirsk, took off our bikes, jumped off the train, and then continued down the South Siberia to Altai mountains, and then crossed the border to Mongolia, did the whole Trans-Mongolia thing. So mostly like really off-road across the deserts and really cool all the way like to Ulaanbaatar. And from Ulaanbaatar, we continued to northern Mongolia, from there back to Russia, and then just continue to the far out Siberia, really kind of far away.
Nice.
That's our route.
So Tuukka, this is a massive journey, as Jyri said, 10,000 kilometers. Anyone who's looked at a map of Russia knows how expansive it is. How do you plan a journey like that? How do you choose the route you take?
That's a great question. When Jyri introduced me to the idea, he had done a lot of research and mainly looking at kind of like satellite maps using Google Maps to really draw out a route that would really take us off road. So of course part of the route was on the road, but we really wanted to access some of the kind of remote areas, and as we had this really great KTM enduro bikes, we really wanted to venture off road. But yeah, I mean the main thing was that Jyri had been planning kind of using the satellite maps, and maybe Jyri, you want to comment a little bit more because you did most of the planning, I would say.
Yeah, I think you're spot on that one. But I used the Google Earth Pro, so it says Pro, but it's free for everybody online. So it's more accurate than the Google Maps. So you can kind of zoom in on that one. You'll find even the smallest paths. So for example, I've been riding a lot in Laos in the past years, and I always find these small jungle paths, and the same applied to Mongolia. So I was able to find even the smallest single trails, so double trails there for us. And also I was able to plan I found a village, and I knew that if I found a village in that section, I knew that there will be a gasoline and water and some food. And that was the thing. I would just zoom in, was thinking about, is there any way to go through these mountains or this section? So yeah, and then I did a lot of Googling for let's find some interesting places in Mongolia and Karelia and Siberia. And that's basically spent several months for it.
So what was the reality versus the planning? Because sometimes you look at a Google map from above and the terrain, you can't really get the gradient, or the map is a bit too blurry to see the actual ground and the makeup of the ground. How did what you had planned actually map to in reality? Was it easier or was it harder than what you were expecting?
Oh, I spent so many months on it, so I kind of felt that I knew the whole, like, several thousands of kilometers of map from my kind of backbone in my memory. But it was surprisingly accurate because, like, me and Tuukka, we had like a limit how much kind of gasoline we can carry. I think like we have like around 400 kilometers range on asphalt. But when you go off-road and you just kind of twist the throttle a little bit, that we like to do a lot. So we made like sometimes to 320 or 340, like with all the gasoline that we were carrying on off-road conditions. So it's very crucial that I was able to trust on our plan. So if there's a village and then you have like 200 or 300 kilometers to the next village, but if that village is not there, then we are screwed. So we took a little risk there, but it worked. It worked out. If the village was there every time, I thought it would be there.
Couple of things come to mind. I agree that let's say that for the vast majority of the time the route was excellent, and then in some points, like in the Altai mountains, we were really trying to find our way through the forest, and which turns into this kind of like complete mud and like huge kind of kind of like hills and these kind of extreme kind of weather conditions didn't help. And then the other thing that comes to mind was kind of the kind of deserts in Mongolia. So we actually hit the really soft sand. It's so hard, so exhausting to ride on that. So then all of a sudden the kind of you have planned to ride several hundred kilometers during that day, and then all of a sudden you realize that actually we won't actually make that much progress today. But it's hey, that's part of the fun.
So you mentioned the terrain there, and when you talk about off-road, I mean it really was a true off-road adventure. You had sand, you had the desert landscapes, you had the rocky landscapes in the mountains. So you guys really went through a lot, and as you said, it's really tough on the bodies riding through soft sand. But what about the bikes? How did they fare across the journey? Did you have any challenges with running them?
I think the bikes worked really well. I don't think we had really any mechanical problems with the bikes, except for one thing. Jyri had really bad luck with tires. So he must have had, I don't know, I lost count how many flat tires he had. I don't think, did I even have one? I don't think I had even one flat tire.
I only changed your tires in Siberia for new nubbies, but I think you didn't have any, and I just got a constant punctures. Like sometimes it was some metal object piercing through, sometimes some sharp rock, but yeah, you got 0. I got like 6. Something like 6 or 5 or 6 something, yeah. And sometimes it's just in the middle of the desert. But I remember that once when I had that puncture, and we were supposed to kind of just ride and just find the nearest village. But then I had that puncture, and then we decided to just camp on this middle of the desert, or like plateau, or how do you call that in Mongolia? And then it was super nice, sunset, and somebody had given us some vodka. And then you actually carried it with you, and so we ended up drinking some vodka, some mojitos on the middle of the Mongolian desert with a perfect sunset.
That was brilliant, because there was like I think there was several hundreds of kilometers to the nearest road and inhabitation, And it was actually quite fun when, you know, we saw the sunset and then we went to sleep. And then, you know, the next morning when you wake up and you kind of like, you know, stick your head out of the tent and you're like, holy crap, we're really in the middle of nowhere. There's like nothing here.
Yeah. And then the reason why like the sun was like about to set, I think we had like 1 or 2 hours still, but I didn't want to risk it because if you start changing your tire when it's dark and you have all those headlights on, it will draw all the mosquitoes and all the flies and they will eat you to death. So I have had some experience on that one. So I will never ever change a tire in the middle of the night if I don't have to. No, I just camp.
Yeah. And did you guys camp the entire journey?
Our objective was to find the kind of the coolest places to camp. Sometimes we spent the night by some really nice lake somewhere, and sometimes up in the kind of little bit up in the mountain. And then sometimes we stopped at the villages, guest houses, and so on. So I think it varied a lot. But I want to mention two special accommodations we had. So one was in Mongolia, and we had been like roughing it really for the past I don't know how many days, and we were just so tired, so hungry, and everything. And we found this tiny village in the middle of nowhere, and it was already dark by the time we got there. And of course, you know, they didn't have any kind of like guest houses because it was a small village. So we went to the only place that had lights on, and it turned out to be some kind of local like you know, tiny shop that sold like food and stuff. And then we didn't speak the language, any language that they would understand, or and so on. So then we kind of used the sign language just to say, hey, you know, like we would like to find a place to sleep, and you know, could we actually come to your place? And literally just like with sign language pointing their house and kind of making suggestions that we need to sleep. And so then they actually invited us to their home, and you know, we spent the night there at their place. So that was a fantastic experience. And
I also like
yeah, sorry. The other one that sticks to mind was when we were coming back in the somewhere in Russia. I can't remember which smallest town it was, but they did have a hotel, but again, it was late at night, like almost midnight, and we were really tired. So and they didn't have actually any places, any rooms available. But with my broken, I speak a very little Russian, but with my broken Russian, I managed to explain that, you know, we would need a place to crash just for a couple of hours. And the guy kind of said that, hey, no problem, come on, follow me. And then I was like, where are we going? And then we just like went across the yard, and he took me to this furniture store, and I was thinking, what the hell is going on? And then he said that, oh yeah, here's a sofa, and he opened up this sofa bed inside the furniture store, and then he brought some blankets and pillows from the hotel, and we slept in this furniture store.
Yeah, and so, I think I just looked for the best bed in that furniture store. Yeah. Like crap, this one or that one. That's a good one. So,
yeah, it was brilliant. I mean, but people are genuinely so friendly. I mean, we met so many friendly people, and most of the time we didn't have, you know, share a common language that we could speak, but you know, they could see that we're, you know, from some, you know, really far away place, and tired and hungry and so on. So people were really helpful and friendly.
We had a cool bikes that always helped a bit as well. You know, we always had some discussion with the motorcycles, despite we didn't understand each other, but you know, it was always.
Yeah, it always helps when you look cool, riding into a village on two bikes. And yeah, that came across in the film, actually, all the different places you were eating and stopping. It was quite interesting to see just the openness of the people and the willingness to share their food. But there is one occasion in the film where I feel for you guys after, I can't remember what you had eaten, but you had got food poisoning.
Yeah, that was.
And then we're riding for a day.
Yeah, that was actually it all started from. There's a bit of a story to this. So Jyri is a great animal lover. Really cares for animals, and we saw this. Or Jyri actually spotted this small goat that had lost from the herd, and Jyri insisted that he will drive around trying to find some of the kind of like nomad kind of gears where they live in this kind of tent-like structures, and I I was positioned there with this little goat for like, I don't know, like an hour and a bit, and I was wondering if he can find his way back, and eventually Jyri came back and said that, hey, there's this gear tent there in a couple of 20 minutes or something away, and then we actually loaded the goat on top of the Jyri's bike and rode to the gear, and there was this old lady and probably her granddaughter or great granddaughter, something like that. She must have been like 100 years old, and she invited us inside the ger and offered us some goat's milk, like warm goat's milk, and then this type of I don't know, it was some kind of custard or some kind of goat product, and that was offered on top of a kind of piece of bread, and it was delicious. It was delicious, and we were very happy to have this kind of local delicacy and so on, and yeah, but after a few hours, it turned a little bit nasty.
Like 1 week diarrhea, like I lost 10 kilograms after that.
Yeah,
so the whole trip.
It was excruciating. I mean, because it is hard enough to ride like 10, 12 hours per day in a really like bad conditions, and when you have diarrhea, it's like nothing stays in, and you can't really kind of stock up on the little food that would be available. So you're kind of like really weak, and I mean it's it was terrible.
I felt for you guys.
Yeah, and we had worse conditions right after it happened because it started raining and full of these potholes, and it was like so that's crazy. It's great week after that was. Yeah.
You mentioned there about the challenges of the roads, but the conditions, especially in Siberia, at one point you were riding through a forest fire. That seemed like quite an intense experience, to be in the middle of nowhere where there's uncontrolled fires burning around you.
Yeah, that was to be honest, that when it happened, how it happened was that it was just in the morning. We left very early that morning. And then we both thought that it's just a fog, because you didn't smell the smoke or anything in the beginning. It was just like very foggy. Like we thought it's a fog, but you didn't recognize that it's a smoke. And then we just kept on riding, and then it started smelling, and our eyes were stinging. And then we also realized that we had been kind of on this smoke for 2-3, at least couple hours already. And then we kind of just stopped, and then we thought that this might be really dangerous, because this whole is smoke and it could kill you. So that was one of those situations in my life, at least, that I wasn't sure that what's going to happen. So it was pretty scary. It was really kind of, it wasn't like, we didn't laugh much on that section anymore. So
yeah,
what happened?
I started really to wonder, like, what I remember us talking about this and stopping, kind of like, so what are the symptoms? Like, do you pass out, or what actually happens when you get this much smoke? And it started to be like really hard to breathe, and eyes were just like watery, and really, I mean, that was probably the scariest moment in the trip, where we really felt that now we're in danger, surrounded by these massive forest fires.
Yeah, even one of the riskiest things in my life, I cannot really recall it was really, really bad. At least we thought.
I think it's fair to say, and correct me if I'm wrong, the aim of the trip or the where you guys really wanted to ride was on the BAM road, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Could you describe to those listening who might not be motorcyclists or even have just simply not heard of the BAM road, could you describe what it is and why it's such a special place to ride?
Yeah. So the BAM road is like everybody knows Trans-Siberian Railway that goes on a kind of southern part of the Lake Baikal and across pretty much the whole Siberia, from Moscow all the way to Vladivostok. But then there's like this another railway on the north side of Lake Baikal, where you actually, it's like in the middle of all this like northern Russia, and it extends for 4,500 kilometers through Siberia. So it's like insanely long as well, but very rarely people know about it. And then on this, it's called BAM Railway, Baikal-Amur Main Line. And then they have this service road along it, which we tackled. And most of the bikers who go there, they do like around the half of it. And then the second half, like couple thousand kilometers, I think there has been only like couple expeditions. I know only one group that has done it with their bikes. It's the original that I also like. I found personally that BAM road just by Googling and finding some interesting places. So it was discovered by, in my understanding, Walter Smith and Siberian Extreme Expedition back in 2009. So now I kind of just came across it, and they have this crazy Vitim bridge, which is like 600 kilometers long, all decayed, and it has some crazy bridges, like collapsed things there, and it's been abandoned for 30 years or something, that unmaintained. So yeah, that was
the Vitim Bridge. You've got to, Tuukka, maybe you can elaborate on it a bit more, but looking and watching you guys cross that, it's a heart-stopping moment, right? It's a bridge that is decaying and the ground is wooden, like bits of wood, right?
Yeah, it's a fairly narrow bridge. How many meters wide would you say, Jyri?
Like one narrow truck or lorry kind of wide. It's a bit wider than like a passenger vehicle.
Yeah, that's a good way to describe it. And it's high up on top of the river, and it has absolutely no railings or any kind of safety features on it, and even the kind of like the wooden planks that are on it are in really terrible condition. So there are these massive, almost man-sized holes in that. Some of the planks are loose. So as you ride on them, they kind of like spin underneath your wheel, and it also is not a flat surface, so it has these kind of like bit of obstacles and so on. And what made it kind of extra challenging for us was when we got there, it was windy, and it was also a little bit rainy. So it was wet and windy. So it was super kind of intense riding over it. And I don't believe I've ever been so concentrated in my whole life. It was just like in those few minutes, kind of like trying to get across it and just stay kind of stay focused and not to fall off, because if you fall off, you're pretty much dead. If you fall off your bike and therefore the bridge. So that was, I mean, that was quite something.
Yeah, and I thought like before I crossed it as well, because it was like 600 meters long, and even walking it made me scared. So then I thought that, just ride it. We never actually kind of walk it through. We would be much safer, most likely, just to walk it and see what's coming. But we just rode it, That's it. So there was some, it was a fun experience. But yeah, man, it was scary. It was really scary.
So one thing, should we share a little bit of a backstory, Jyri?
There are some addition for that.
So this is actually not shown on the movie, and there's a bit of a reason why. So actually, parallel to the Vitim bridge, there is this quite modern train bridge, and in Russia, I believe, this is my understanding, is that you are still forbidden to film the kind of bridges because of like strategic reasons and military reasons and so on. So as we were crossing the bridge, obviously we were making our film at the same time, and we had a drone with us. So when we were filming and when we had just crossed the bridge, the guards from this railway bridge approach us, and it's funny because it's a bridge in the absolute middle of nowhere. The closest tiny town is like 3 hours away, that is only accessible with like four-wheel, like super vehicles in a way. And in both of the sides of this railway bridge, you had armed guards protecting the bridge. So it must be somehow, kind of strategic bridge. So they didn't quite like us kind of like filming there. And I remember I had just crossed the bridge and I was full of endorphins and kind of like really pumped up. And I came walking back the bridge to the other side, and I saw Jyri there talking to the guard, and I thought, oh, the people have been so friendly, so he's probably just come on to congratulate us and so on. And yeah, it turned out I was quite wrong. So by the time I got there, I understood he was quite let's say angry. And kind of like saying that you shouldn't be doing that, and then he took away basically our passports, and then he actually locked us in this little shed, and said that they have called the police from this village, and we're thinking, hold on, which village? The closest village is 3 hours away. And what happened is that we actually waited in that little shed. It got dark and we didn't know what was happening and so on. So then in the middle of the night, we hear a truck approaching, and then lo and behold, there was 2 or 3 kind of local policemen there. And yeah, what happened was that they were really friendly, the police. They just said, look guys, this is not allowed here, so unfortunately we're really sorry, but we need to take you in. We need to take you to the village. And we were like, okay, well, what about the bikes? What about all the gears? They say, bikes stay here, we take all your gear, and then we go to this village. And I remember it was so absurd. In the middle of the night, we were riding this in this Russian 4x4 in the middle of the night to this village, and then it was like something like 5 a.m. when we got to the police station, and they actually woke up this kind of investigator or something like this, and then she investigated us there and then in the middle of the night. And I still have this image in my head, kind of like looking across the room and kind of like staring a picture of Putin on the wall, and you're kind of being detained in the some remote absolute in the middle of nowhere, and you're just like, okay, let's just try to get through this and cooperate, whatever they want.
So how did you get out of it? What happened in the end?
So what happened? And again, I stress the police were really nice. They could see that we were, we're not there to steal their military secrets or spy on them. We were just 2 adventure motorcyclists that just didn't happen to kind of well, they thought that we were filming the bridge or whatever. But what happened is that then after like hour, they questioned both of us separately, and then they made us sign this kind of like really long statement, which was in Russian, and we were like, well, we don't know what it says, so we can't really sign it. So, and then I remember the lady said that she turned around the monitor, kind of like flipped it so I could see it, and then she said, Google Translate, and then I just broke out laughing. Like it was almost 6 a.m, and I was just like, kind of like read through it and like, okay, yeah, we were, doing this and that, and we will never do it again, and this and that and the other. And then we signed like 15 signatures everywhere, and then they were like, okay, guys, you're good to go. And then we were like, okay, well, hold on. So, but our bikes are like 3 hours away. How do we get back there? And then the friendly policemen, they were like, yeah, no problem. And then they drove us back to the kind of railway line, and they actually stopped a train, and then they told the train driver that, hey, these guys, you're going this direction, so drop these guys off in 3 hours time. And we were like, is this really happening? So we got into this freight train, and a couple of hours later in the early morning, we were back at our bikes, and we were like, okay, well, let's continue.
And I remember one funny detail about that train, that it had this kind of a passenger compartment. So like they had the seats, and under the seats, all the seats are like full of wood, and each cabin had this fireplace, because on those areas of Siberia, it gets like -40 at winter time. So each kind of passenger cabin was like full of wood that you can kind of heat it up yourself. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it sounds quite luxurious after a couple of weeks on a bike.
Yeah, they were nice, and they feed us as well. The police there, they
did. They gave us tea and like stuff to eat, and so they were. Although it was daunting, because we didn't know what was happening, and Russian laws and things are not quite like we're used to in the Western world. So
yeah, as a retrospective, I actually kind of found out, Googled a bit what it means, these railway bridges, and I found it from the internet that this was a law in 90s, that all these bridges and like these kind of things, that you weren't able to film. But that's an old law. It's like not valid anymore. So at least that was the information I kind of found out as a retrospective, that did we really do something illegal when we were flying our drone over some bridge? But yeah, it was 2016, so then they had a bit more terrorist threats in the world. So that might be one of the explanation why they had all these AK-47 guards, because they were really like on both sides of the bridge, you have a couple guys with AK-47s
and dogs.
Yeah, and dogs. And they had, after that and before us, there's been several people with the drones on this bridge, and I actually tried to see, but I haven't seen these guards anymore there. So it's possible that we were just on a bad time there.
Maybe it was some heightened security thing. I don't know, but it was an experience.
So the journey, it was about a month in total, right? So you started in Moscow, and where is it you ended up? Did you make it all the way to the Pacific coast, or does the BAM road end before you get quite that far?
That's a good question, because in the video you see us crossing the Vitim bridge, but actually what happened that we only had 5 weeks for the whole trip before we had to be back on our offices at our day jobs. So the thing was that all this kind of we've been detained for, it took us a couple of days. We were extremely tired. We hadn't been sleeping, and we knew that that there's 1,200 kilometers to Irkutsk, where you have a train back, or our other option was to kind of continue the BAM road to the end of that BAM road, and then just kind of try to get our bikes and ourselves somehow to Irkutsk or to Moscow from there. But we started realizing that we actually spent a bit more time in Mongolia and Siberia than we planned. So our schedule became a bit of a problem. And so we decided to actually, after Vitim Bridge, after we crossed it, we decided to turn back. and ride another like 1,200 kilometers down to Irkutsk, and then put the trains to the Trans-Siberian train. We flew back to Europe, started working, and after 3 weeks or so, we kind of flew back to Moscow, picked the bikes, and rode them a couple of days back to Helsinki.
But I just want to say, gentlemen, it's been great going through and reliving that experience, albeit from the comfort of my office at home. So thank you very much for taking the time to share it with me.
Thank you very much. It's been a
Thank
pleasure.
you very much. It was nice to talk to you and tell about little stories about our travels.
Thanks very much, guys. Have a lovely evening.
You too.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yes.
Pull up a map of Russia when you next have a minute. It'll give you a sense of just how epic this journey really was. For the full story and amazing visuals of the landscapes, you can watch Jyri and Tuukka's film Broken Roads to Siberia on YouTube absolutely free. The links are in the description. The guys tell me there's a bottle of vodka buried somewhere en route, if you're tempted to follow in their footsteps, or should I say tire tracks. See you again in 2 weeks' time for the 8th and final episode of Expedition Season 1. Until next time, goodbye.